Part 56. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 554. In that kind of situation, which takes a long time to evolve slowly, and is absolutely lonely and boring, even Pangu can't help but be tempted to move. It takes years and months to evolve chaos. However, it won't have any effect if he transforms into a body and travels around the endless world, right? Thinking of this, Pangu's heart was moved, and he immediately took action. As he thought about it, Pangu began to sense the endless chaos, the countless heavens and the worlds, where his legends and information were spread, and prepared to descend incarnate. In an instant, in Pangu's perception, the countless worlds of heaven and earth, even many chaos, and even the sea of the void world, were lit up with stars. And the endless stars were where his legends and information were spread. However, before Pangu could follow the information entanglement formed by those legends and information, he chose a place to descend. The small chaotic gas mass he derived suddenly rolled violently at this moment, and the chaotic gas that was several times more than before was derived in an instant. A large amount of chaotic gas surged and instantly filled the chaotic force field, causing the chaotic force field to suddenly expand a large circle. This sudden change immediately shocked Pangu. He did not expect that his legends and information spread could not only serve as information entanglement, allowing him to descend to the other end at will, but also derive chaotic gas with it when it was sensed. As for why his legends and information spread did not produce this effect before, that is also easy to understand. As the root of the legendary concept of Pangu opening the sky, Pangu can naturally sense these legends and information at will. But on the other hand, the reflection of the beliefs of countless sentient beings can never be reflected on Pangu. Only now, when Pangu began to sense the many legends and information, the faith of countless sentient beings could be linked to it and produce a reverse push. You know, because of the special concept of the Taoist master, as long as someone recites or thinks of Pangu and the creation of the world, it can derive the power that belongs to Pangu to a certain extent. However, this feature was deliberately blocked by Pangu. After all, the legend of Pangu creating the world is extremely widely spread, whether it is the original blue star or the countless worlds discovered later. Let's not talk about the blue star world. There is already a legend of Pangu creating the world. As for other worlds, with the arrival of many world masters and their exchanges with each other, the various myths about Blue Star and the stories of the gods naturally spread. Especially the myths and legends such as Pangu creating the world and Nuwa creating humans. Well, now that is what really happened. And because of this, it also makes these legends spread more strongly. They are all elementary enlightenment books. It is also because of this that Pangu restricted the spread and derivation of conceptual power. If not, I don't know how many people will die. After all, with Pangu's current strength, even if it is a tiny bit, it is definitely not something that ordinary practitioners can bear. Even ordinary Tianzun strongmen can hardly bear Pangu's power, and it is possible to die and fall into madness. As for those ordinary people, it is even more difficult to bear. So, Pangu restricted the spread and derivation of conceptual power. It's just that Pangu restricted it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. At this moment, when Pangu connected all the information legends, the reflection of the belief of countless sentient beings was reflected on Pangu. The power derived from it, belonging to Pangu, was not derived and manifested in countless sentient beings, but was directly fed back to his chaos through the connection with Pangu. When any living being chanted, the chaotic energy generated was definitely extremely thin. Even the heavenly venerable and even the lords of the world would derive more chaotic energy than ordinary people. However, it was not because of their strength that they would derive a huge amount of chaotic energy, and they were also derived in strands. However, the chaotic energy derived by a living being was thin, but the chaotic energy generated by countless sentient beings together could be described as massive. The blessing on Pangu was enough to increase the speed of his deriving chaotic energy several times. It turns out that those legends and information about me can not only generate power in the target, but they can also bless me in return. Feeling the rapidly increasing chaotic energy in the chaos, Pangu's expression changed several times in succession. Well, since Pangu has already become a concept, how can this be seen? Well, it is naturally judged by the power radiance it emits. The chaotic and hazy power radiance flashed waves after waves, and even other colors appeared in succession. From this, it can be imagined that Pangu's heart is definitely not calm. As for why it is so? Haha, think about the loneliness and solitude he has suffered for countless years. If he had known earlier that the countless legends and information could actually bless him when he established a connection and help him quickly derive the chaotic energy, perhaps this chaos would have been evolved by him long ago. Don't think that just by increasing the chaotic energy several times, you can spend the same amount of time to complete the evolution of this chaos, which is far from the same. In fact, it is not the case. If someone chants Pangu, it can bless him and accelerate the evolution of chaotic energy. Pangu can completely open up the infinite world, and use the power of the sentient beings in the infinite world to feedback Pangu and the concept of opening the sky, help him derive the chaotic energy, and completely evolve this chaos. However, such a convenient road was blocked by himself, until this unintentional behavior, which made Pangu discover it. Pangu, who was in a complicated and confusing state of mind, finally suppressed his turbulent emotions and completely integrated himself into it, connecting with the countless legends and information anchors, and jointly generating the chaotic energy. And with Pangu's full integration, after his unified management, the speed of the chaotic energy generation was accelerated by nearly double again. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 555. Suddenly, Pangu no longer had any thoughts of coming to other worlds, and instead devoted all his efforts to generating the energy of chaos. Moreover, while Pangu was evolving chaos, he also spread an invisible wave of information with his own concepts and avenues. This wave of information containing Pangu's creation of the world and his incarnation of all things, with Pangu's location as the core, spread rapidly to the surroundings. However, things did not proceed smoothly. The invisible information fluctuation had just spread out of the chaotic force field where Pangu was located, and was already submerged and dissolved by the nothingness. It did not spread to the infinite chaos that it sensed, as Pangu wished. Although he had already expected it, Pangu was still a little disappointed. And since this situation was not achieved, Pangu could only settle for the next best thing. Soon after, the ancient world of Pangu opened up by Pangu in the chaotic void began to spread outwards at this moment, and various legends and information about Pangu's creation of the sky began to spread outward. Hey, what's going on? Feeling the information fluctuations spreading out from the ancient world of Pangu, many world masters who could sense these couldn't help but look confused. I don't understand what's wrong with this big guy now. Since the last time, Pangu taught everyone the method of becoming a master of concept, he has rarely appeared again. In other words, since then, no one has seen Pangu again for several epochs. If there hadn't been any problems in Pangu's prehistoric world, everyone would have thought that Pangu had fallen. However, this time, there was news about Pangu again, which actually directly caused various legends and information fluctuations about Pangu to spread in the ancient world of Pangu. You know, after everyone opened up the world, most of them blocked the spread of world information. Just like the Black Forest theory spread in the Blue Star world, everyone is naturally cautious when facing the endless chaotic void. Even the world itself, the information fluctuations that spread independently, many world masters will completely suppress it by relying on their status as world masters. Even if they can't, they will try their best to intercept it, or add some specious information to it, making it more difficult to decipher and mislead those who are aware of it. They are afraid that the information about their world will be captured by some powerful beings, and then reversely deduce the world coordinates of their world. And such a being would probably be able to crush them easily. Faced with such a situation, they will naturally not put their own safety above the kindness of others. Instead, they will continue to burst out with strength and do their best to hide the world's information. However, the ancient world of Pangu at this time was unexpectedly uncharacteristic. Instead, it continued to spread world information outwards, especially the information about Pangu, which naturally made everyone puzzled. However, no matter how doubtful everyone is, it will not have any impact on the spreading world information. In almost just an instant, with the help of the power of Pangu's concept, the invisible wave of information had completely covered and spread through the entire chaotic void. Even the void world sea outside the chaos could not stop the spread of that information. Well, many worlds in the void world sea will continue to emit their own information to the outside world, so naturally they will not stop it. However, with the blessing of Pangu's concept power, this spread speed has reached an extreme level. Although it was not that big, it spread throughout the void world sea in an instant. However, the world community that the three masters of arms had spent countless years arriving at could be regarded as the center of the spread of information. Countless worlds and world groups were covered by that information in an instant. Naturally, this spreading information was also sensed by countless powerful people, and they began to analyze the information to see if they could find the world coordinates where the information was located. Of course, they definitely can't do this. After all, Pangu only wanted to spread his own information, but did not disclose the world coordinates. With his current state, it is still easy to increase or decrease the various information derived from the information fluctuations spreading in the world. Just shielding the world coordinates is naturally easy to capture. However, apart from the world coordinates, they can almost see everything at a glance. They analyzed everything about Pangu's creation of heaven, Pangu's incarnation of heaven and earth, and the future development direction of the world, etc. And the more information they know, the more powerful their feedback and support will naturally be for Pangu. Even with the blessing and intervention of Pangu's conceptual power, the information spread in Pangu's prehistoric world was weakened. Not only those powerful people can sense and analyze it, but even ordinary creatures in some worlds, as long as their minds are slightly more sensitive, can also sense some information fragments. Naturally, most people don't care about this. But there are always some people who will record and write about it. Of course, there will definitely be some artistic processing on it. Well, such as novels and storybooks. In short, the legend about Pangu creating the sky and incarnating all things has been completely spread. Well, it also involves Yuan Meng's chaos. As time goes by, the feedback and blessings that Pangu can get are constantly increasing, gradually reaching an astonishing level. This makes the chaos derived by Pangu expand at an astonishing speed every minute and every second. Soon, in Pangu's perception, his chaotic world has been initially nurtured, and he can already create the world and evolve the world in it. It's just a pity for Pangu that the chaos he derived is still a big gap from those naturally born chaos. And his chaos can only support him to open up a world, and it is an ordinary small world. After Pangu pondered for a long time, he finally decided to open up a world first and see what the final result is. Moreover, no one stipulates that one person can only nurture and derive chaos. Moreover, as time went by, the feedback and blessings he could get from countless sentient beings became stronger and stronger. Even if a new chaos was generated, it would definitely be much faster than the current one. Having made up his mind, Pangu immediately transformed himself into his own chaos. In just a moment, the entire chaos began to shake violently, ready to collapse and disintegrate at any time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 556. Feeling that chaos was showing signs of collapse, Pangu was shocked and quickly dispersed his body, trying his best to maintain the stability of chaos. After another moment, the entire chaos stabilized, and Pangu finally relaxed with lingering fears. It seems that with the current intensity of chaos, it is still unable to carry all my power. Pangu thought thoughtfully in his heart. At the same time, Pangu also looked at the chaos where the supreme prehistoric place was. If his sensing was correct when he left the chaos, then the supreme primordial world would also have a faint tendency to leave the chaos. Does this mean that the chaos on that side is gradually unable to carry the supreme prehistoric world? Pangu felt that this should be an inseparable matter. Unexpectedly, the supreme ancient world has developed to such an extent now. A whole prehistoric transcendence, both in terms of difficulty and power after transcendence, must far exceed mine. After sighing, Pangu withdrew his mind and once again focused on the chaos he had derived. Now that he discovered that the chaos he derived could not fully bear his own power, wouldn't it be enough for Pangu to reduce some of his own power? After several more attempts, Pangu finally came again. Moreover, after Pangu came to chaos this time, he never caused any reaction from chaos. Pangu breathed a sigh of relief, felt his incarnation, and felt a little uncomfortable. How long had he not been so weak? Was it when we just entered chaos and opened up the world of Pangu? Or was it when he had just become a heavenly lord, or when he was in the realm of Taoism? Even his memories and information are only part of it. What's more, even Pangu's character in this state was slightly affected. This feeling of weakness and discomfort made him constantly depressed, and he always felt like he wanted to vent violently. Especially when he saw the loneliness and chaos around him, Pangu's feeling became even stronger. In this case, Pangu thought of the purpose of his arrival this time, and couldn't help but stretched out his hand to grab it. The endless energy of chaos gathered and turned into a huge sky-opening axe. Pangu held the sky-opening axe in his hand, and after weighing it slightly, he swung it out with all his strength, venting his frustration. Huh! Rumble! Ka-ka-ka! Wow! A bright axe light flashed across, illuminating the chaos, causing this chaos to be split open by the axe. The evolution of yin and yang, the distinction between clear and turbid, and a small world quickly formed. Next, Pangu kept moving, striding forward, arriving at the junction of chaos between heaven and earth, and slashed hard again. Boom! Ka-ka-ka! Immediately, a piece of chaos was split open again, with the same derivation of yin and yang, and the distinction between clear and turbid. This small world immediately more than doubled in size. Repeating the previous actions, Pangu continued to create the world. Even, because this time Pangu had the intention of venting his frustration when he opened up the world. There is no intention to use the power of the world after the creation, or even to sort out the rules of the world. Instead, it has always used its own strength to carry out the act of opening up the world. Boom boom boom! Ka-ka-ka! Deafening sounds resounded in this vast, lonely chaos. The world opened up by Pangu was also growing at an alarming rate. Huh! Finally, after an unknown amount of time passed, the annoyance in Pangu's heart was finally vented. He let out a long breath and stopped his movements. Well, he had to stop. If he continued, I'm afraid the whole chaos would be split open by him. However, while he was just venting his anger, he forgot that while opening up the world, he also had to sort out the various rules of heaven and earth in the world and build the core structure of the world to stabilize the smooth operation of the world. At this moment, Pangu couldn't help but be dumbfounded when he saw that the whole world was crumbling, with violent vibrations everywhere, and seemed to be about to collapse at any time. Huh! Pangu took a deep breath, then took a step forward and arrived at the center of the world. his body shape changed and expanded rapidly. In a short period of time, Pangu's figure had reached a limit. He supported the sky with his hands and stepped on the earth. The vast power in his body spread, temporarily stabilizing the vibration of the world. At the same time, Pangu's body shape was still changing, with a dragon head and human body, a human body and a dragon tail, etc. Because his own power has not fully arrived, and before, he only cared about venting his inner annoyance instead of stabilizing the world. Pangu is adjusting his transformation through his current body shape, and the entire world is adjusting at the same time, so that the rules of the entire world are being quickly sorted out and adjusted, making the entire world quickly stabilize. Finally, the whole world was completely stable, and Pangu also felt exhausted. Huh. Pangu let out a long breath and smiled bitterly in his heart. How long had it been since he had felt this kind of weakness? And just as Pangu sighed, the breath he exhaled turned into the first wind between heaven and earth. The rules of wind between heaven and earth immediately circulated rapidly, becoming active and growing stronger. Then, Pangu shook his head and stopped thinking about other things, but began to dissipate his own essence. In an instant, the whole world came alive. The eyes turned into the sun and the moon, the hair turned into stars, the body turned into the Buzhu mountain that supported the sky, the rivers and rain, the mountains and rivers of the earth, the flowers, birds, insects, fish, birds, and beasts, all of these things were rapidly derived. Even Pangu's little spirit turned into the way of heaven in this world. Gradually, as time passed, this world in the chaos began to develop and prosper rapidly, and began to have the birth of living beings and innate gods. However, these so-called innate gods did not have all kinds of magical powers as the supreme primordial world did when they were born. In Pangu's newly opened world, the countless innate gods who were born could also control some of the power of rules and possess some magical powers. However, their abilities are not magical at all. At most they can be called supernatural powers. Yes, they are supernatural powers. Because this world is not strong, if these innate gods are allowed to mobilize the power of rules at will, they are fully capable of destroying the entire world. Therefore, the way of heaven in this world limits the strength of mobilizing the power of rules. When many innate gods use them, they are no different from the supernatural powers used by some ordinary mortals. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 557. In the New World, the innate divine abilities are all kinds of supernatural powers. And their practice is not that strong. Innately sacred, born short-term. But the first step in their practice is to perceive the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and to receive the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into the innate state. As for the strongest ones, they can only cooperate with themselves and can barely control the wind at short distances. Or gliding. With one leap, you can use your own powers to glide in the air to a distance of 300 to 500 meters. What is this if not gliding? And their attack power is also very impressive. There is no need to think about destroying mountains and mountains, but they can barely achieve it by destroying century-old trees. All in all, the new world opened up by Pangu is probably in a kind of situation. It has surpassed the average martial arts master, but it is definitely not at the level of high martial arts. It can barely be regarded as the level of medium martial arts. Feeling the intensity of the new world and the cultivation level of the creatures in it, Pangu couldn't help but be quite dissatisfied. This was far different from what he had imagined, and it was completely inconsistent with his current identity. However, the new world is not without any use. With the proliferation of creatures in the world, especially the birth of those innately sacred and intelligent creatures, there was immediately a feedback power that directly blessed Pangu. A large amount of chaotic energy was instantly derived, filling the world outside the world. In chaos. Well, this is almost catching up with the feedback power of countless living beings in other worlds. Feeling the intensity of the feedback, Pangu couldn't help but be secretly happy. Sure enough, in his own world of chaos, the feedback from the creatures in it to him is indeed much greater than that of others. Next, Pangu did not continue to strengthen the chaos he derived. Instead, he derived another chaos outside of this chaos. When the chaos was derived, as Pangu expected, it did not conflict with the previous chaos. It was like two parallel lines that ran parallel to each other and did not intersect with each other. This time, the speed at which Pangu derived chaos was obviously much faster than before. The spread of legendary information from the outside world, and the feedback and blessing of countless sentient beings in the new world, made the new chaos begin to be filled with a large amount of chaotic energy, prompting the new chaos to continue to expand. Rumble. Kaka, kaka, kaka. When the new chaos was far greater than the previous chaos, Pangu descended into another incarnation and performed the act of creating the world. This time, the world opened up by Pangu will be far greater than before. Although it is still impossible to give birth to strong men in the realm of true immortals, or even gods, a large number of practitioners under the Hedeo have been born. In this way, Pangu completely forgot about his desire to travel to other worlds. Instead, he was immersed in the derivative chaos and the creation of the world again and again. When he came back to his senses, he had already derived a large amount of chaos and opened up countless worlds, with its concept itself as the core, overlapping and overlapping in this void. And in this countless world of chaos, there are naturally strong and weak ones, and the weak ones are just barely close to the middle martial arts level. In the countless years that Pangu derived chaos and opened up the world, such a world has been destroyed countless times and reopened by Pangu countless times. Although, those worlds are constantly growing and growing in this reincarnation. However, they have never been able to get out of the end of the world and the end of the world. Pangu can only open up the world again and start a new cycle. Finally, Pangu, who was a little impatient, simply made some settings for the incarnation that descended into it. That is, when the world is destroyed, the incarnation of Pangu will be reborn in the destruction of the world, and once again perform the act of creating the world and evolving the world. In some powerful worlds, strong men with the realm of Heavenly Lord have already been born. Worlds like this have been able to exist in chaos for a long time, and even to this day, those worlds still exist. Of course, there are reasons for the late development of those worlds, but the more important reason is that the essential strength and perfection of the rules of those worlds are far greater than those of lower worlds. However, Pangu is still not optimistic about these worlds, just because, although the world that was opened earlier has the birth of Tianzun, it has never transcended the world. As for opening up the world again in the chaos, there is no trace of it. Things. And as time went by, the rules in the world became stable and functioning, and began to lag little by little. Especially with the birth and death of a large number of creatures, some spiritual beliefs that were not wiped out immediately began to integrate into the world little by little. Not only are they hindering the stability and operation of the rules of heaven and earth, they are also absorbing the power of the rules of heaven and earth, and have a tendency to evolve into strange monsters. These strange monsters were born because they absorbed the power of the rules of heaven and earth, and even incorporated fragments of the rules, making them extremely difficult to destroy. Not to mention the realm of Hedeo gods, they are not much different in nature. Even those weird monsters are more deeply integrated with the rules of heaven and earth, and can mobilize more of the power of heaven and earth. Power, ordinary gods are really no match for them. Even a powerful Taoist transformation has to pay a huge price to be able to wipe it out. If that were the case, they would not cause too much trouble to the world. After all, there is still the heavenly venerable above, so it is not a big problem to wipe them out. However, as time goes by, the birth and death of countless sentient beings, endless obsessions and fragments of consciousness are constantly integrated into the world, making those strange monsters more and more numerous, and their power will become stronger and stronger, and they will be more deeply integrated into the rules of the world. When one day, these strange monsters are completely integrated with the rules, then let alone the existence of the Deo realm, even those strong people in the heavenly venerable realm will never be able to kill and wipe them out, or even seal them. After all, the rules of heaven and earth are spread all over the world, and the strange monsters that are integrated with the rules can naturally use this to appear in every corner of the world at will. If you want to completely kill and wipe them out, you can only collapse the rules that are integrated with them. And in this way, it means that there are flaws in the world, and it is easier to breed these strange monsters. If this cycle continues, the collapse and destruction of the whole world can already be seen. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 558. After Pangu secretly felt sorry for a while, and realized that the worlds he had opened up would inevitably go to destruction, he turned his attention to the outside world. Hey, it seems that a new chaotic gas mass has been born? Could it be? Sensing the new chaos, Pangu couldn't help but exclaimed in surprise. Moreover, sensing the feedback and resonance coming from the chaos. Is this someone spread his name in his own world? Maybe even spread his own deeds. With a little sigh, Pangu descended directly to the place where he had a sense of resonance. This is a vast world, even more vast than the worlds he opened up, and outside the world, there is even more vast chaos. Pangu's mind swept over and found where he had descended. A place where a powerful being preached. At this moment, a powerful being was telling the secret of the creation of the world. It is said that before the creation of the world was in chaos, with no distinction between up and down, and no time and space order. At the right time, there was a Yuanqi Qi that was born, combined with the essence of the world, named Yuanqi Tianwang, and then transformed into Pangu Tianwang, who created the world, and then there was the rise and fall of the clear and turbid, and the reproduction of all things in the world. Listening to the story of that being, Pangu gradually understood who created this world and who evolved the chaos. He also understood why he felt the information entanglement anchor point in this world. Although Yuanqi Tianzun did not directly create the world in the name of Pangu when he created the world. However, he did use the name of Pangu after all. Although he said that he was the incarnation of Yuanqi Tianwang, he still had information entanglement with Pangu. I think he was able to sense other worlds because the masters of those worlds used his name when they created the world. When thinking about this, Pangu couldn't help but be curious. Why did they all use his name? As soon as he thought about it, Pangu's figure disappeared. From the beginning to the end, no matter the people who listened to the teachings under the powerful existence or the powerful existence who preached, they all didn't realize that someone had been here. In the vast and hazy depths of chaos, Pangu's figure slowly emerged, and his aura bloomed slightly. The next moment, a figure wearing a cloud-colored Taoist robe and 72 colors of light blooming quietly descended in front of Pangu. Fellow Daoist Pangu. Fellow Daoist Yuanqi. Congratulations to fellow Daoist Yuanqi for attaining the realm of the conceptual Daoist master. Also, can I ask why you all used my name to create the world? After the two sides greeted each other, Pangu did not beat around the bush and ask directly. Well, it's nothing, I just want to attract the attention of fellow Daoist Pangu, and then ask Daoist whether you want to leave a mark in my world and descend to your incarnation. It's just that in the countless years, since Daoist Pangu left, there has been no news, and we haven't gathered for a long time, so I use this method to attract Daoist's attention. Oh, so, then there is naturally no problem. Pangu showed a look of realization, feeling the chaos, which was still expanding rapidly, and couldn't help but speak again. It seems that fellow Daoist also knows that the spread of his legendary information can get certain feedback and bless the speed of the derived chaotic energy. Well, we have indeed known it. I didn't expect that the reputation that I never cared about in the past would be actively spread and publicized at this time. While nodding his head to confirm, Yuanqi Tianzun also sighed slightly. Well, yes. Who could have thought of this? Since I am going to descend and incarnate in this world, will fellow deist also leave a mark and incarnate in my world? Pangu also nodded in agreement, and then asked again. Haha, it is what I wish, but I dare not ask you. After hearing Pangu's question, Yuanqi Tianzun immediately laughed and agreed happily. Since fellow deist has woken up, do you want to meet with fellow deists? Well, that's natural. After Pangu nodded in agreement, the two smiled at each other and spoke almost at the same time. Daiyu taking. Daiyu tong tian. Daiyu hung jun. Nuwa is here. As the two of them called out, ripples immediately appeared in the chaos, and majestic figures emerged one after another, including Taking, Tong Tian, Hung Jun, Nuwa and others. Over the years, with a clear goal as a guide, everyone has achieved the realm of the concept master, escaped from the chaos, came to this non-existent nothingness, and evolved their own chaos. Naturally, when Pangu and Yuanqi Tianzun called out their names, they would naturally feel them. Especially when they were in the same realm and did not block at all, this feeling was even stronger. I'm afraid that even if they fell into a deep sleep, as long as they did not deliberately block, they would wake up at this time, and they would instantly understand the reason. That's why they came here one after another. After another round of greetings, everyone also talked about their experiences over the years. Although Pangu had known the general changes over the years through information entanglement, he had not experienced it personally. Moreover, the things experienced by Hung Jun, Sanking, Fuxi, and Nuwa were shielded by their own conceptual power, and Pangu could not sense half of them, so he was still very interested in everyone's narration. As everyone continued to narrate, Pangu gradually sorted out the development and changes over the years. When Pangu walked out of chaos and entered nothingness, everyone completely lost the sense of Pangu. Everyone only knew that Pangu must be still alive, but they had no idea where he went. And what state was he in? In the end, everyone could only guess that Pangu should have entered a place that they could not sense or observe, and only the master of concept could enter. And this is probably the real transcendence. As for what everyone said before, transcending the rules, transcending the world, etc., it was just to lay the foundation for this ultimate leap. After making a rough guess, everyone immediately plunged into even more fanatical practice, trying their best to condense their own concepts, prove the realm of the master of concepts, make the ultimate leap, and completely transcend. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 559. Afterwards, everyone continued to practice. Finally, Yuanqi first broke through the bottleneck and shackles, and was the first to prove the realm of the concept master. As the saying goes, one Yuan is born, and everything is renewed. After breaking through to the realm of the concept master, he naturally understood that chaos also has its limits, and he naturally stepped into the nothingness outside the chaos. In the nothingness, he evolved his own chaos and opened up a primitive world. However, he was not like Pangu, who would create the world and evolve new chaos every time he reached a stage. Yuanqi Tianzun has always been only expanding a chaotic world, and has not created new chaos. In addition, after thinking of Pangu and suddenly spreading the information of Pangu's primitive world, Yuanqi Tianzun naturally began to connect and study those legends and information about him. Naturally, Yuanqi Tianzun discovered that those legends and information about him could give certain feedback and blessings to his derived chaotic energy. Therefore, he began to spread his own legends and information, whether it was the information in his world or some of his past experiences, all of which were spread out by him through various means. For example, establishing a sect. The teaching of Yuanqi Tianzun, which expounded the ultimate truth of heaven and earth, was established under this situation. His disciples and some beings in his world who could walk in the chaos all became missionaries who spread his own doctrines and ideas. For Yuanqi Tianzun, whether the doctrines and ideas spread out or the cultivation methods contained in them, all have the same effect. The countless sentient beings in the heavens and the worlds, whether they accept his doctrines and ideas, practice his methods, or even just know the name of Yuanqi Tianzun, will give him certain feedback and blessings, so that the speed of his generating chaotic energy will be strengthened again. Of course, this feedback and strengthening also has strengths and weaknesses. Those who only know the name of Yuanqi Tianzun naturally have the weakest feedback. Those who can accept his doctrines and ideas have medium feedback. The strongest feedback is naturally from those who practice his skills. Because being able to practice Yuanqi Tianzun's skills is not just about accepting his doctrines and ideas, but also about having a very deep understanding, and being able to integrate knowledge and practice, and being able to practice little by little. Only those who can achieve this level can truly understand the true meaning, comprehend the wonderful methods of practice and the great principles contained in it, and thus embark on practice and pursue the great way of heaven and earth. And with such a deep understanding, the feedback and blessing of Yuanqi Tianzun is naturally the strongest. Moreover, this intensity is not static, it will be strengthened step by step as the practitioners become stronger. When they practice to a truly profound level, they may not be able to break the shackles and truly transcend the chaos. But they will definitely be able to open up the world and become a world master. Well, when they can transcend the world and become the Lord of the world, they will be summoned by Yuanqi Tianzun and receive his blessing, which will make their world, the great Dao, etc., get a qualitative improvement, and make their strength far exceed that of other ordinary world lords. And those who can transcend the world and become the Lord of the world will call this step, transcending and proving the Dao, and seeing Yuanqi. But on the other hand, such a world will also give Yuanqi greater feedback and blessing. Although the creatures in it are not as good as the world opened up by Yuanqi himself, they are far better than the creatures in the ordinary world. Following Yuanqi Tianzun, everyone also proved the Dao and completely transcended the chaos. Similarly, everyone, like Pangu and Yuanqi Tianzun, began to spread some of their past deeds and information. And most of them, like Yuanqi Tianzun, began to sort out their own ideas, compile their own doctrines, and create their own sects. Taking's human-oriented and heaven and earth-based humanism, Taoism that expounds the great way of heaven and earth and is based on morality. Tongtian's Zhijiao, which intercepts a ray of life and wins a ray of opportunity for all living beings. In addition, there are Hongjun Xuanhuan, Jian, and Zunti's Western Buddhism, Tei, Daijun, Haoshan Jade Emperor's Heavenly Court, the 12 ancestral witches and Ho-Tu's reincarnation in the underworld, and the Azura religion of the Styx Patriarch, etc. After all, sometimes, it is easier to gain people's recognition by spreading with the power of sects. After all, only those who recognize the doctrines and concepts can feedback and bless stronger power. Moreover, these doctrines and concepts can not only feedback and bless everyone's power, but also make the speed of deriving chaotic energy stronger. At the same time, these doctrines and concepts also contain various methods of practice, which can enable people to embark on the path of practice. Moreover, no matter where people are, whether those worlds have the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, everyone can embark on practice. When sentient beings truly recognize those doctrines and can comprehend the practices, they can also obtain certain power feedback from the names and doctrines of Yuanqi Tianzun. In other words, as long as they silently recite the names of Yuanqi Tianzun and the entire doctrine during their practice, they can naturally obtain the spiritual energy of heaven and earth entering their bodies and then successfully practice. And what Xuanhuan and others preach in their doctrines and concepts can also be further realized through these various concepts and names. For example, what Western Buddhism calls the Western Heaven Lingshan and the Paradise, the Heaven of Tai, Daijun, the Haoshan Jade Emperor, the Underworld of Hutu and others, etc. When everyone truly believes in all of this, and unites knowledge and action, and acts in accordance with its rationale, they will indeed be able to feel all of this. Even when he dies, he can go to the paradise of West Tianling Mountain, as well as heaven, underworld, etc. This is the power that belongs to the master of concepts. It can be exercised regardless of distance or world. As long as the conceptual information exists, you can exercise its concepts, principles, and authority. It is precisely because of this situation that everyone was able to derive such immeasurable chaos and open up such a vast world within this period of time. After everyone was detached, they also thought about contacting Pangu. It's a pity that at that time, Pangu had already fallen deeply into the derivative chaos and opened up the world. He had no mind to pay attention to the external situation, and naturally it was impossible to come to the outside world to contact everyone. As for why everyone didn't forcefully call Pangu as the Taoist master of concept? Well, what if Pangu was doing something extremely important, but was interrupted because of everyone? Let's not talk about whether it will lead to failure in all the efforts and whether it will lead to enmity with Pangu. Just the most basic thing, that kind of behavior is an extremely disrespectful behavior. How could everyone do this knowingly? All he can do is spread the name of Pangu in his own world, and wait for Pangu to wake up on his own and come to the world of himself and others. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 560. When everyone in Pangu reunited after a long separation, they talked with each other about their experiences over the years, and after some discussion on the occult. That is when he began to accept Pangu's invitation and descended into the chaos he opened up. This is the chaos that Pangu has recently evolved into, and it is also the most powerful chaos among the countless chaos that Pangu has evolved into. And Pangu had not yet opened up a world in this chaos. This time, everyone is invited to come and join in the epoch-making act. After Sanking, Hongjun, Fuxi, Nuwa and others arrived, they could not help but frown slightly as they sensed the size of the chaos. Pangu was the first to realize the concept of Taoism and was also the most powerful being among all people. Why was the chaos he derived so small? Although speaking of it, Pangu's latest evolution of chaos is no longer small, and it is definitely enough to evolve a powerful world. Even the upper limit of this side of chaos can already allow a small number of world lords who are not powerful to appear. However, compared to the chaos derived from Yuanqi Tianzun and the others, it is even worse, definitely not among the top 100. Considering Pangu's status, that's really not that big. Haha, how is it? How about this chaos that I derived? Yuanqi Tianzun and others looked at each other. How should they answer this? The chaos evolved by your great god Pangu is so small that it is almost out of date? Well, if you say that, wouldn't it offend people? Will he get a blow from Pangu's axe? Not bad, really good. Well, it's really strong. The chaos derived from Taoist Pangu already exceeds most of the chaos. Well, listening to everyone's praise, Pangu always felt that something was wrong. Afterwards, Pangu glanced at the way everyone looked around at chaos and their slightly perfunctory tone, and couldn't help but feel a little enlightened in his heart. These people feel that the chaos they have derived is too small, and some of it does not quite fit their identity. Haha, I wonder how many worlds can be opened up by the chaos that you fellow Taoists have evolved. This. For a moment, everyone was a little confused about what Pangu meant. Just now, everyone was asked to comment on his chaos. Why was it suddenly mentioned that the chaos they evolved could open up and evolve many worlds? However, Although everyone was a little confused for a moment, they all gave answers one after another. The area of chaos we have evolved today is still a bit too small, and it is simply not enough to open up more evolved worlds. There is no way. Even though we have tried our best to derive the energy of chaos for countless years, there is still a huge distance compared to the chaos born through natural evolution. Well, you can't say that. If you use the main world as the anchor point, you can also open up many worlds. Indeed, there are 3,000 worlds in the pure land of Lingshan Mountain and the land of ultimate bliss. And each great thousand worlds has 3,000 worlds within it. Even each middle thousand world is divided into 3,000 small thousand worlds. That's right, like fellow deist Shishan, it directly opened up countless timelines and evolved countless parallel worlds. Listening to everyone's constant discussion, Pangu couldn't help but raise the corner of his mouth slightly. What you fellow Taoists said doesn't count as creating a world in chaos, right? But this is also true. The chaos we evolved is still a little too weak. Weak. The chaos of Taoist Pangu. Like. Can we allow the existence of some world lords? When someone said that the chaos that everyone had derived was too weak, someone immediately reacted slowly and looked at the chaos that Pangu had derived again. Even let out a little bit of emotion. Gradually, more and more people reacted and began to carefully feel the chaos in front of them. This is strength. Friend Pangu's chaos is stronger than ours. Gradually, someone finally realized that although the chaos evolved by Pangu was not as vast as the chaos evolved by everyone, its essential strength was already much higher than everyone else's. There may still be a big gap between it and the chaos of natural evolution, but it can definitely carry a lot of worlds. Swish swish swish. In an instant, Yuanqi Tianzun and others all looked at Pangu, with a hint of admiration emerging. As expected, Pangu, the great god who was almost always in the lead and was the first to prove the concept of Taoism, was actually one step ahead of everyone else and understood that this chaos was not only vastly different in size, but also had differences in intensity. It can even be said that the essential intensity of chaos is more important. After all, chaos has no concept of time and space. In theory, even fist-sized chaos can open up countless worlds. However, after the chaos evolved from nothingness, everyone always felt that the size of the two was too different due to the contrast of the naturally born chaos. So subconsciously, everyone also believed that the reason why the chaos they derived could not carry and open up more worlds was because its size was far from enough. But he forgot that the naturally born chaos should actually be stronger than the chaos derived by everyone. And this is the main reason why everyone has been unable to develop and evolve more worlds by deriving chaos. Facing the admiring eyes of everyone, Pangu felt a little embarrassed. In fact, he didn't think of that much at the beginning. However, as he derived chaos and opened up the world again and again, Pangu's understanding of chaos, chaotic force field, etc. became deeper and deeper, and even the essence of his concept was constantly deepened and strengthened. Therefore, the chaos he derived, whether in terms of its intensity or the speed of evolution, was also increasing little by little. Perhaps at the beginning, that little bit of strengthening was not felt at all. But slowly, as Pangu derived more and more chaos, the countless little bits accumulated, and the gap in strength between each other naturally became larger and larger. Pangu naturally realized that the many chaos he derived were actually different in terms of essential strength. Based on this point, Pangu immediately thought that the reason why the chaos he opened up could not carry and open up more worlds was not only because of its insufficient size, but also because of its insufficient strength. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 561. After countless attempts and constant deliberate efforts to strengthen the strength of the chaos, finally, Pangu evolved this new chaos. In terms of sheer size, although it was the best among the chaos he had evolved, What Pangu valued the most was naturally its essential strength. Even in Pangu's view, the chaos in front of him could be regarded as a qualitative transformation compared to the chaos he had evolved before, and it was enough to carry and open up more worlds. Similarly, Yuan Tianzun and others who had awakened also realized this point. This was more than a level stronger than the chaos they had evolved in terms of depth and strength. Although the chaos they had evolved seemed vast and endless, its strength had always been only able to carry one world. But Pangu's world was already able to carry more worlds. So, everyone looked at Pangu with admiration. "You are indeed Pangu deist, you have thought of something we have never thought of." "Haha, that's not the case. It's just that you have fallen into the obstacle of knowledge and understanding. You have been constantly expanding, and the chaos you have evolved is naturally difficult to think of this." Pangu chuckled and explained very modestly. "Well, no matter what, the fact is that Pangu deist thought of strengthening the intensity of chaos, but we didn't think of it at all. Hee, if you have the same experience as me, you can also think of it. Or, you can discover it." Discover? What Pangu deist means is. After Pangu finished speaking, everyone immediately grasped the key point, and they couldn't help but look at Pangu with a little curiosity. I don't know what Pangu has experienced, but he can actually discover the difference in the intensity of chaos. You know, maybe it's because they were born in the chaos where the supreme primordial desolation is. They have been in it for countless years, but they have never felt that the chaotic energy has any intensity. Even after they transcended and evolved their own chaos, they did not notice the difference in the strength of the two chaos. Well, perhaps this is also related to the fact that they never returned after transcending. After all, there is no real comparison, and it is really difficult to compare the strength of chaos based on past impressions. However, Pangu did not seem to have returned to the chaos, so how did he notice it? Well, in fact, Pangu did return to the chaos where the supreme primordial wasteland was. However, there was not much difference. After all, Pangu at that time had not yet evolved his own chaos, so he naturally could not compare the strength of the two chaos. Hee. Looking at the puzzled eyes of the crowd, Pangu chuckled, and did not explain aloud, but directly used his own conceptual authority to spread a mysterious force field, covering everyone. Feeling the sudden force field, everyone's hearts moved, but they did not struggle to break free, but let Pangu do it. As Pangu's thoughts turned, the perspective of the crowd changed rapidly. They gradually transcended the chaos and reached Pangu's current perspective little by little. In an instant, everyone saw nothingness and chaos at the same time. This state was naturally very familiar to everyone, because their original bodies were also in this state. Whether it was nothingness or the chaos they derived, they were all clearly in their field of vision. However, what everyone could observe at this time, in addition to the unchanging nothingness, turned into the chaos derived by Pangu. However, when everyone really saw all this, they were immediately dumbfounded. They all looked at the chaos carefully in disbelief, and then looked at Pangu again. What did they see? The chaos derived from Pangu, the concept master, was not like everyone else, who only derived one side of the chaos and then continued to expand the size of the chaos. The chaos derived from Pangu was so dense and overlapping that it was simply impossible to count, and even obscured everyone's vision of the void. This was because there were too many chaos derivatives, and with Pangu as the same root core, the countless chaos force fields gradually formed a more mysterious and powerful force field, which could even interfere with the void and even shield it to a certain extent. And everyone was able to find that this dense, overlapping, and countless endless chaos was also large and small, strong and weak. Even, they saw some extremely weak chaos, and the world opened up in it was just barely entering the low-level martial arts world. Those innate gods, manipulating fireballs the size of table tennis balls, but the wind blades were only 2 fingers wide, and their bodies kept flying and moving, but the farthest distance was less than 10 meters. Looking at the fierce battles of those innate gods, everyone was speechless. Let alone hot weapons, I'm afraid that even ordinary bows and arrows could kill them, right? Following everyone's gaze, Pangu was also slightly embarrassed. This attempt always had both success and failure. This was also why the world Pangu opened up at the beginning already had the strength of a medium-level martial arts world. After countless world reincarnations, the middle martial arts world at the beginning has now reached the level of high martial arts, even close to the level of the immortal martial arts world. However, among the countless chaos derived by Pangu, there are still chaos with such weak strength, and the reason for the world. It is nothing more than that after he discovered the difference in the strength of chaos, he conducted experiments and tried to strengthen the strength of chaos. Instead, inadvertently, the strength of some chaos was weakened by a large margin. And for such chaos, Pangu did not erase it or integrate it into other chaos. He still placed his incarnation in it and opened up a world. However, the worlds opened up in these chaos are even some ordinary worlds without any extraordinary power. Well, it can't be said that. Because in the world, there are still innate sacred beings born by heaven and earth. It's just that these innate sacred beings may just be stronger, slightly faster, and can use a little mental power to slightly interfere with some reality. For example, moving a stone, breaking a chopstick, or bending a spoon. If these innate saints are already like this, then you can imagine what others are like. There is nothing special about them. In general, it is an ordinary world without magic. And now everyone can see that the innate saints can control fireballs, wind blades, and fly nearly 10 meters. That is the result of those worlds. After countless reincarnations, the strength has been improved. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 562. Well, in some aspects, the low-level world is not necessarily worse than the high-level world. Even the world that has been upgraded after countless reincarnations has a bit more historical weight. Facing the gazes of Sanking, Hongjun, Fuxi, Nuwa and others, although he felt a little embarrassed, Pangu's face remained unchanged and he said it very naturally. Google search reading. Although Pangu's original intention was definitely not like this. But in fact, it does have such an effect. It's just that it is for the reincarnation in the general world. As for the reincarnation of the world in chaos, that is the destruction of the world, the return of all things to the ruins, and then the world is opened up again. Nothing will be left for you, so where does your sense of historical weight come from? The reincarnation of the world in chaos is more of a kind of heavy rules. After all, the evolution of a world, the evolution of various rules, can be said to be complex and endless. And these complex and endless rules will not be completely dissipated after the destruction of the world and the return of all things to the ruins. Instead, they will all return to Pangu with his resurrection. Those rules that are strong enough to resist the erosion of chaos will naturally be imprinted in the chaos and become part of the endless chaos rules. And those weak, nascent rules, and even many Deo rules and legal fragments, will be integrated into Pangu's body and protected by Pangu's body, so that they will not be annihilated with the destruction of the world, or be eroded and dissolved by the chaos. Then, with Pangu's recreation of the world, these various Deo rules, and legal fragments, whether strong or weak, will be resorted again with the creation of the world, and evolve the rules of heaven and earth in the new world. These various Deo rules, and legal fragments will continue to evolve and improve as the world grows and grows. Eventually, they will grow into powerful Deo rules that can resist the erosion of chaos, and then be imprinted in the chaos by Pangu. It is precisely because of this continuous cycle that those weak worlds can continue to grow and develop in these cycles, and eventually the world will be upgraded and become a more powerful world. And the world that is upgraded in this way is naturally much more complicated in terms of the complexity of the rules than the world that is a higher world from the beginning. After all, when the world was created, it means that the master of the world was already powerful to a certain extent, and many weak rules among them would naturally not be integrated into the world and become the main framework of the world. In most cases, when many world masters opened up the world, they used the various powerful rules of the avenue they mastered to build the main framework of the world, and then maintain the balance of the operation of the world and the rules, and let it develop naturally. And in the weak chaos derived from Pangu, at the beginning, it was naturally Pangu who tried his best to use powerful rules to build the main framework of the world. However, as the world develops and evolves, there will be more and more complicated rules. The weak and the strong will continue to integrate into the world as Pangu reopens the world, and continue to evolve and improve as the world develops. Pangu's repeated reopenings of the world are more about reorganizing the world and the rules, so that the increasing number of rules will not become bloated and in turn cause shackles and obstacles to the operation of the world. Such a world that is constantly reincarnated will naturally exceed the complexity of the rules of the general newly opened world. That's true. That makes sense. Seeing that everyone seemed to have realized something and agreed, Pangu also secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and finally made it round. For these concept masters, they can completely ignore the passage of time. As long as they want, they can fall into the deepest sleep, and wait until those extremely powerful chaos have reincarnated countless times before waking up again. The evolution of those powerful worlds will also make the rules more complicated, and they are much more powerful than those weak worlds. Even if there are some worlds that are strong enough to resist the erosion of chaos and exist forever, the various rules derived from them will be truly complex and endless, and those worlds will sort out the rules by themselves and will not cause the world to collapse. In short, the strength of the world makes no difference to them, the concept masters. If the only useful thing is the weak world, it will definitely be able to open up more worlds and evolve more creatures at the same time, and have more creatures feed back the power of the concept master. Looking at the endless chaotic world and the creatures of the infinite world, Sanking, Hongjun and others are also moved. Can they also evolve more chaos to deepen their understanding and cognition of chaos, so that the evolved chaos becomes thicker and thicker, and finally complete a qualitative change so that it can carry more world evolution at the same time? The most important thing is that in this process, more and more living beings will multiply, and the feedback and blessing to them will become greater and greater, making the speed of their generation of chaotic energy continue to accelerate. But before that, they will not give up the endless chaos and infinite world in front of them. Involuntarily, everyone looked at Pangu. Haha, are you willing to enter the endless chaos and help me evolve and promote the growth of the world? After changing everyone's expressions and meeting everyone's gaze, Pangu chuckled and extended his invitation. Ha ha ha, that's what I want, but I don't dare to invite you. Everyone is already interested in this kind of mutual benefit, and they have been doing it, so naturally they will not refuse. In an instant, everyone's bodies disintegrated and turned into endless star points of spiritual light. Then, like a meteor shower, they all fell into the endless chaos. Looking at the actions of everyone, Pangu also moved in his heart, and an information rule was also submerged into the endless chaos. Buzz. In an instant, the endless chaos was buzzing and vibrating. There are even some worlds that are directly unstable and collapse in an instant. A huge demon god is born from the destruction of that world. Feeling the information in his mind and the countless life breaths floating in the chaos, Pangu couldn't help but smile. The world was finally not so boring and boring. As time went by, the countless breaths of life combined with the energy of chaos gradually gave birth to a noble chaos demon god. Immediately, a vague message flowed into everyone's hearts. Pangu's creation of heaven was a calamity, which prevented his great merits of opening heaven. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 563. The endless chaos was boiling up, and the roars were vast and extremely fierce, spreading all over the chaos. One after another, the chaos demon gods began to move towards the depths of the chaos, towards the center of the chaos. In the center of the chaos, Pangu stood proudly holding the axe of creation, and the surging breath spread, and the chaos around him kept surging, and even the chaotic space was stirred up. Listening to the roars coming from far away, Pangu did not move, let alone dodge, and still stood proudly on the spot. Soon, the chaos demon gods began to descend one by one. Looking at Pangu holding the axe of creation, they immediately roared and quickly killed forward. Humph! Facing these chaos demon gods, Pangu could not help but snorted coldly, and swung the axe of creation in his hand without hesitation. Boom! Crack! Swoosh! A dazzling and sharp axe light flashed, distinguishing between clear and turbid, evolving between yin and yang, and a new world was quickly opened up under the sharp axe light. The chaos demon gods that were coming to kill were also frozen on the spot at the same time, and then they were like fine sand, weathering and dissipating in an instant, leaving only the swirling and wandering rules of the avenue. Pangu did not hesitate, stretched out his left hand and grabbed the swirling rules of the avenue, and immediately took them in front of him. As his mind turned, the avenue of power surged, and the avenue rules were instantly sorted out by him, with the avenue of power as the core, and merged together. Accompanied by a burst of light, a small jade disc appeared in front of Pangu, surrounded by purple mist and the avenue rules flowing, all showing its extraordinary features. Then, there were more chaos demon gods descending. After the two sides met, there was basically no communication, and they fought directly. Or rather, they were killed by Pangu on the spot, and then the rules of the Great Dao were extracted and integrated into the jade disc of creation in front of him. In the end, Pangu killed all the chaos demon gods that came, and at the same time, he opened up a vast world. Looking at the new world in front of him, Pangu was delighted and kept pointing at the jade disc of creation in front of him. OM. Accompanied by a slight tremor and hum, the jade disc of creation in front of him immediately burst out with a strong purple light, and the great Dao flowed and quickly spread to the whole world. OM. This time, the whole world was filled with the humming sound of the great Dao, and the purple air filled the 6 directions and 8 wastelands. As the rules of the avenues collided, fragments of the laws of the avenues were generated, and under the influence of the purple air, they absorbed the spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth and turned into flowers falling from the sky. As time passed, the whole world was filled with purple air, and the rules of the avenues were everywhere, making the whole world constantly stable. Under the blessing of the various avenue rules, it transformed to another level. Finally, when all this stopped, the purple air that permeated the world gradually dissipated, and the avenue rules gradually disappeared. The whole world had completed a complete transformation, becoming more vast and more profound. I believe that even if the whole world is destroyed and Pangu reopens again, it will be no less than the current world at the beginning. This has never happened before. If the world wants to transform, it needs to evolve continuously. Only when the avenue rules are perfected to a certain extent can the world transform. As for Pangu reopening the world, it was more about reorganizing the rules of heaven and earth, so that the world would return to the stable and active state when the world was first opened, making it easier to evolve and improve the rules of heaven and earth. But reopening the world will never cause the world to change. And the reason why this happened this time was nothing more than the blessing and stabilization of the great way of the chaos demon god. Or, it was the great way of Xuanhuan Tianzun and others, blessing and stabilizing this new world. After all, the so-called chaos demon god, wasn't it the spiritual light of Xuanhuan Tianzun and others? It's just that after they descended into the chaos, they blocked the memory of the original body. After all, if they carry their own memories, then this kind of experience and reincarnation will lose a lot of fun and meaning. Well, they certainly didn't expect that after they descended into the chaos, the first thing they faced was Pangu's axe of opening the sky. As for why both sides were at the same level, but they performed so poorly. When fighting with Pangu, they were just one kid at a time, and there was no suspense in being killed. Haha, why don't you see whose home court this is? Although Pangu also descended as a little spiritual light incarnation, he was essentially the Lord of Chaos, the incarnation of the great Dao in this chaos. As long as the spiritual light incarnations of Xuanhuan, Tianzun and others did not use their original power and awaken the deepest fundamental power of the spiritual light incarnation, no matter how powerful they were, how could they be the opponent of Pangu? Naturally, they could only let Pangu ravage and manipulate them at will, and even extracted their great Dao and merged it into that piece of creation jade disk. As the world gradually stabilized, the jade disk of good fortune in front of Pangu basically exhausted its power, and the various integrated avenues also showed signs of disintegration. Crack, crack, bang. Finally, accompanied by a burst of shattering sounds, the jade disk of good fortune that Pangu had finally condensed completely collapsed. In an instant, countless star-pointed streams of light swept through the incomplete avenues and instantly spread into the entire world, absorbing the spiritual energy of the world and turning into innate sacred and innate demon embryos. And Pangu's body, just like when the world was created before, instantly became upright, and then dissipated the essence of the whole body. His eyes turned into the sun and the moon, his hair turned into stars, mountains, rivers, land, flowers, birds, insects, fish, etc. Only the most original spiritual light remained, escaping into the core of the world, merging with the avenue rules that constituted the main structure of the world, and turned into the heavenly way of this world. At this point, the evolution of the entire world was complete. Then, the world gradually developed and evolved. This creation of the world is not much different from the stories of novelists. Pangu created the world, but the demon blocked the way. This scene did not only happen in one chaos, but in countless chaos, all of which had such a scene. Of course, there are also some chaos where the world did not fall into destruction, so Pangu did not need to create the world again. And the spiritual incarnations of Xuanhuan, Tianzun and others will naturally not turn into chaotic demons, but will descend into the primitive worlds, turning into new creatures in them, and interpreting their own lives and legends from the beginning.